Hi, Lisa Gifford here, and today we're going to be learning how to make the Trillium block with the Martelli Trillium template set. There's two templates in here, so it makes two different sizes of blocks. These are the templates. This one is the 6 and this one is the 5. So I'm going to show you how to make just one simple block. But what's really cool is with this one simple block, you can make something like this. This is what I'm calling a kaleidoscope, like a table topper, and you can add to it, make it bigger and bigger, but this is kind of like a kaleidoscope look. I think I used like 7 or 8 different fabrics to make this one. This one's done with the 6, and this one here is done with the 5. Just a beautiful, beautiful block, real easy to do. So I'm just going to show you today how to make this simple piece by using these templates. So I'm going to do the 6 today, and the supplies that you're going to need to be able to make this is you're going to need some fabric, and if you're going to do something like this kaleidoscope, you're going to need a mixture of lights and darks, about 7 to 8 different fabrics that kind of go well together. You're going to need the rotary cutter. You're going to need a marking pencil. The Martelli has a really good one here that has different color leads with it. So I've got the marking pencils here. You might need some scissors or some snippets. Of course, you need the templates, a ruler. You might need to use some water, a spray bottle, or you might want to just go ahead and use some starch because you want to get all of your fabrics all ironed out first before you even start. So the next thing you're going to do is when you get your template and you open it out of the packaging, it has a registration mark right here on the top. So you need to be able to get that open. And I recommend that you use your scissors or something pointed and you go from the back side. So you're going to just kind of push it through that hole and you're going to just kind of give it a little twist like this. And it's going to open up that opening right there. Do not do it from the front side because you might push this browning fabric out. So just do it from the back side, give it a little twist, and it'll open it up. Now to do the 6-inch block, I like cutting my fabric into 4-inch strips and then I cut from there. So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside and we're going to go ahead and start working. If you're going to do the 5-inch, I like working with about 3.5-inch strips of fabric, but I'm just going to show you the 6, and that's with the 4-inch strip. And I like to place my template like this. I mean, you could line it against these edges here, but I just set it, however way you want. If you want to have a straight grain going across these edges, then you could have it going straight grain across these edges. I just kind of set it like this, and then I'm just going to kind of flip it back and forth as I do my cutting. So I'm going to be cutting from the wrong side. So this is the wrong side. And I've got my template set on here the way I want it to set. And the first thing I'm going to do before I even do my cut is I'm going to go ahead and mark my spot. Now it's kind of got a little bit of a depth here, so I like taking my marking pencil and I bring it down just a little bit so that I can get my lead all the way through. And I just kind of give it a little twist to mark that little spot right there. And then I'm just going to get my rotary cutter and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it around so make it easier for me to do my cut. And I'm just going to cut it out. Now you can stack these up and do your cuts. And there is my block with the little marking on it. You can stack these up, but when you're stacking them up, you're only going to be able to get one cut. So if I was to stack these up and I had several of them ready to go to do some cuts, and I'm just going to show you for demonstration. I've got 2 layers here. So I'm just going to be able to get one of them marked by having it stacked. So I'm going to show you how I would mark the other ones. Or say you had marked it on the right side instead of the wrong side. So that's another thing. You might be marking on the wrong side, but it's not going to be seen in the seam. So this one shows the mark, but I needed to mark the other piece too. So say this one wasn't marked. Well, this one actually went all the way through. But if I needed to mark it, what I had done was I would just take my template and I would set it back on top. If I had some that were cut out and that were not marked, I would just line up my edges really closely, making sure nothing's peeking out, and then I would go back in and then I could remark all of my pieces. And I had done that when I made the large kaleidoscope here. I had several that were not marked So I just went back and on the back side marked them all. And as you get really good at this, you're going to be able to know exactly where that point is, because it's basically 1/4 of an inch from the edges here. Because that is where our Y seam is. So once you have your fabrics marked, then the next step would be just to do your sewing. So I'm going to show it with these bright colors right here. I got my 3 pieces. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take 2 of your pieces and you're going to place them right sides together so that you can see the mark on top. And that's what I'm doing right here. So I'm taking my 2 pieces and placing them right sides together, and this one's got my mark. And I want my mark to be right there on the top, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew this piece together, and we're going to sew it right here from the point to an edge. So you're going to take this to your sewing machine, and we're going to drop our needle down right here, and we're going to sew a couple of stitches, back tack a couple of stitches, and then we're going to sew all the way off to the edge. Then we're going to press it open, and then I'm going to show you how to do the Y seam. All right, so follow me over to the sewing machine, and we're going to go ahead and get this started. So again, I still have it all laid out right here, and I'm going to start right there at that dot. So I've got my machine set up so that it is doing a pretty tight stitch, because you don't want that to come undone. And so I've got it at a 1.8, but I've just got my needle, I'm going to set it over to the 1/4 inch setting at a 1.8. And what I like to do is, once I got it lined up here, I'm going to double check, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And I bring my needle down onto the dot. So I just kind of look and make sure I've dropped my needle right there in the center of my dot. Then I can drop my feet. And then I'll do like 2 or 3 stitches forward. And then take a couple of stitches back. Do not go beyond your dot. And then just go ahead and sew off to the edge. So then there is my seam. So I just open it up. And if you have your little iron sitting here right beside you, you're going to press open this seam. So this would be one of those great projects to have your little seam assist tool with you, so that you could just lay this on there and just press open your seams. I like to have the seams pressed open. So I'm just giving it a finger press for right now, because this is how you want it to look, nice and flat. So now we're going to do the Y seam. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric and we're going to lay it where I've got the dot on top. So because this is my right side, this is my wrong side. So you're going to put right sides together. So I'm going to match up right here at these 2 points right here. It's going to match up perfectly. And you're going to see, as you feel this, your dot that you had made on the piece that's going to be on the top is going to be right there at that seam. If I just kind of fold this back a little bit, you can see that that dot is lining up right there at that seam, and that's what we want it to do. So we're going to start now here at this edge, right here. We're going to start here, and we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch along this edge, and we're going to stop right here at this dot with our needle down. And then we're going to pivot, pull this side over to this side, and then we're going to sew it right off. So typically you do a Y seam. A lot of times you start in the middle and you work this way and that way. This one here is just really cool. You're just going to go from this edge, get to the dot, grab your fabric, just pivot it, and then just sew off to the rest of the way. So making sure your edges are all lined up. I'm going to drop my foot down, and I'm going to just start sewing my 1/4 of an inch. You could back tack if you want. And I'm taking it nice and slow, and I'm going to right to that dot. And I'm looking for my needle to drop down right there in that dot. One more stitch. One more stitch. And she's right there in the dot. Now this is where the fun part is. You're just going to take it and you're going to kind of pivot it around. You're just going to slide these two pieces. You're just sliding this one over and you're sliding this one around. That's why you want your needle down, feet up, and you're just going to match up your edge here. So now I've got it lined up, matched up right here. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's all nice and lined up. It gets a little bubble right here, but don't worry about that because you're going to sew right through that. It's not going to be causing a crease or anything. You're just going to have it lined up, and now you're just going to go ahead and sew your 1/4 of an inch right off the edge. See how it just did that pivot right there to there? It opens it up a little bit in the back. Now all you got to do is when you go to press it, this gets pressed down here to here to here. So then you just take this to your iron and give it a nice flat press and it'll be good to go. So we'll just go over to the iron and we'll flatten this out. Now I like to make sure that my seam is rolling down. Flip it over, make sure I got it laying the way I want. I don't do a lot of pushing, I just press this seam down. Press this seam down, and if you have our new seam assist, this is one of those tools that would work really good for this. And I'll even show you how it even works well if I had a little steam or something on here. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a steam, like put a little water on there. If you have our seam press, be sure to grab the seam press and set it right down on here. Even if you do steam, it's going to work very well. And just let it cool. And if you're ironing several of these, just keep ironing and stacking them up under here. And when it's all done, look how nice and flat and pretty that is. All right, so here I want to show you the difference between using the seam press and not using the Martelli seam press. Look how much flatter this one is laying, and this one, even though I pressed it, I didn't use the seam press with it. So that's showing here that little bit of a bubble, and then if I just flip it over, you can see how flat this one is laying to this one. It's just not quite as flat. I mean, it's flat, but it's not as flat as if you were to use the Martelli seam press. So that is our Trillium block. Again, it's just 3 simple pieces made with these templates and using some Martelli tools, and it'll be fantastic for you. And just imagine all the things that you can do with it. What I like to do is I grab a whole bunch of fabrics, cut out a whole bunch of them, and I just kind of lay them out. How I want them to look on my table, how I wanted this to look, and then I just started grabbing them in the sets of 3 and started sewing them together. So again, thank you for watching, and again, be sure to go to martellinotions.com and pick up the Trillium template set.